Tough losses for Miami in their 2 games over the course of this weekend. We're going to dive into their recap against the Pacers and Thunder in this Monday's episode of your Heat Latest on FanArc. Thanks again so much for joining us. I'm Sam Shapiro. Thank you to Underdog Fantasy for sponsoring today's video. If you haven't already, drop a like and, of course, subscribe to our channel. We've got great daily content you don't want to miss right here Monday through Friday. Miami taking back-to-back double-digit losses over the course of this weekend. A brutal beatdown against the Pacers on Saturday, followed by a slightly less or a slightly not as bad loss to the Thunder on Sunday. Still not a great contest for Miami in either of these games, where the contest against the Pacers, the smallest margin that the Pacers led was, I believe, 7 points, but then the Thunder pretty much absolutely clapping back against Miami in the second half of this game ultimately was what did them in and ruined any chances or hopes of the 305 defeating last year's defending champions. Now, with this kind of in mind, this is really annoying just because Miami in a tight race to be a contending team in the Eastern Conference, and I'd seen you guys chirping at me in the comments saying that Tyler Hero is not the sole reason to blame, and I shouldn't be blaming him for the not successful play we've seen in Miami. Now, I'm not saying he's the sole reason or the entire contributing factor towards why Miami hasn't been as successful as I'd like them to see. I just couldn't help but note that the games that he's been in play for Miami, they haven't, in my opinion, looked as nearly as efficient as they were in the beginning of the year when they didn't have him. And then this little spurt of games late in December when they didn't have him as well, them looking like pretty much the same team they were at the beginning of the year. So when you look at those two versions of this Heat team without him in play, then you put him back in the mix and you're either barely winning games or at least winning them in less dominant fashion, or you're getting completely blown out by teams like Indiana. It's definitely a point of concern that I feel like is worth addressing here on the channel. And if you're a concerned Heat fan, would take note of and potentially contributing or at least having a factor in the overall success of how this team has been playing. But anyway, this loss against Indiana arguably might have been the worst game Miami has played all year, or at least is a top 5 candidate for it for sure. I mean, 18 points in the first quarter. Bad start to the game, obviously. This game was pretty much over very early on. Losing 123 to 99 to a team that hasn't even won 10 games. So when you look at it like that, you're thinking, okay, even though you're giving up 36 points to Indiana in the first quarter, followed by an abysmal scoring performance in that quarter. I mean, gave up 19 turnovers in this game, made 4 3-pointers as a team in this game. I mean, that's horrible. That's terrible shooting. Brick City all over again. I mean, Norman Powell by far had the worst game of the year. Tyler Hero still had a solid game, but was minus 14 in the plus-minus column. I mean, I don't know what it is, but with both of these guys on the floor, it almost seems like defensively they struggle more, and offensively they're not any better. And they look like they play slower, and in that case, might even be worse. I just it doesn't make sense to me. Now, there have been times, obviously, where they have played well together, but I feel like the vast majority of the time, this Heat team plays at the highest potential they can when it's one leading the charge over the other. And I feel like in more scenarios, we've seen that in the case of when Powell is leading the charge for Miami. In this case, Powell shooting 2 of 12 in this game against Indiana, where, again, Miami shot 4 for 30 from 3. Now, granted, from the field, they shot 39% compared to Indiana's 44%, which is not that great either, but you can't expect to win a basketball game in today's day and age if you're only making 4 threes as a team. I don't know in any, well, especially over the last 10, 15 years, if you're making 4 threes as a team, there is no way on this God green earth you are going to at least, you might make the game close, but I'm not surprised that it was, I mean, I am surprised because the Pacers are not a good team this year, but I mean, you're giving up 29 points to Andrew Nembhard? Like, what? Not saying he's a bad player, because he's definitely a bucket getter, and, the Pacers having a lot of guys that stuff the stat sheet. Naismith having 12 points. I mean, Siakam didn't play amazing. Adebayo did a good job guarding him. McConnell had a solid day. I mean, there were at least 7 guys on this Pacer roster that scored in double figures. So I don't really know what the excuse is there, especially because, again, how not well this Pacer team has been this year, obviously with Turner going to Milwaukee and Halliburton being out for the rest of the season. And there were, with the exception of Hero, it's not like Jaquez Jr. was falling off. He had 16 points, 6 of 12 in this game. But, I mean, again, Norman Powell having his worst game of the year to go along with Adebayo continuing to struggle shooting-wise, 5 of 12. It's another point I want to bring up in terms of not shifting the blame on one person. When Powell has tough shooting nights and Adebayo continuing to consistently not shoot the ball well, I mean, that's also going to contribute a lot. Defensively, I like what Adebayo continues to bring to this team more. And I think if you take him off this team defensively, we're going to see this Miami team struggle even more. I mean, you just gave up 124 points to a team that hasn't even won 10 games this year. If that's not defensively struggling, I don't know what is. You're also giving up 19 turnovers in this game. I mean, it's kind of ridiculous. It's kind of ridiculous. It's sloppy basketball, and it's exponentially worse than what this Miami Heat team is capable of doing night in and night out. Now, Adebayo finishing with 13 points, 9 rebounds, but it's like, dude, you gotta play more efficiently in this game, especially if Powell's having an off night. You gotta step up a little bit. You're one of the best players on the frickin' team. I'm just saying, man, it's gotta improve in some way, shape, or form. Want to give a shout out to the sponsor of today's video at Underdog Fantasy. Fast breaks, buzzer beaters, and block parties are back, and Underdog is the best place to get in on all the action. Playing on Underdog is easy. Just pick whether your favorite players will go higher or lower on stats like points, rebounds, steals, and more. Now get your picks right, and you could win up to 5,000 times your cash. This week on Underdog, I'm looking at tonight's matchup as the Toronto Raptors face off against the Philadelphia 76ers. I'm picking Tyrese Maxey for higher for points, and Scotty Barnes also for higher for points. Download the app today and use promo code BASKETBALLFAN to score $75 in bonus entries when you play your first $5. Again, that's promo code BASKETBALLFAN. Underdog, make picks, win money. Moving over to Sunday's game where the Heat faced off against the Thunder was definitely an improvement from Saturday's bloodbath against the Pacers. I mean, Miami unfortunately still turned the ball over quite a bit in this game, but they definitely shot at least better from three-point land in this matchup. Now, again, I don't want me bringing up the outside scoring to make it seem like this is the sole reason I'm saying Miami is losing these games, but when a focal point of how your offensive vessel is supposed to move is inconsistently not strong in this regard, it's definitely a problem worth considering, especially if you're going to shoot under 30% in a multitude of games, which we have seen from Miami over the course of the last month a lot, and 13% from the field against Indiana is by far the worst shooting performance they've had, and it's absolutely terrible. I wish I could find more words to describe how terrible that is, but I mean, I don't want to sit here and say I could shoot better because I'm honestly not a professional basketball player, but the fact that these guys are getting paid millions of dollars, and you have a number of guys on this Heat team that can shoot the ball from three fairly well, being Tyler Hero, Kel'el Ware from Beyond the Arc, Simone Fontecchio, who I'm not saying is a good player, but at least is a solid catch and shoot option. It's not like you don't have guys that could at least make 1 or 2 threes apiece, and if those 3 guys I just mentioned could at least make 2 threes, you'd have 2 more than what they put up on Saturday. Anyway, going back to yesterday's game against the Thunder, they only lost by 12 on the road, 124-112, and they shot again from beyond the arc much better, actually making 17 threes in this game, 53% from beyond the arc. Much better in comparison to what we saw on Saturday, but in addition, 53% from the field, 44 of 82. Definitely a shooting improvement, but turning the ball over 23 times in this game to SGA, former MVP and this extremely talented Oklahoma City Thunder team who's only lost, I believe, 7 games this year. I mean, I'm not really surprised. I was expecting Miami to blow at least the first half lead they had at some point, but I guess I wasn't expecting it to happen so early midway through or so early into the second half. As about midway through the third quarter, Oklahoma going on a 12-0 run in what was a 39-point third quarter for them. That pretty much sealed the deal. I believe leading it by 17 or more at one point in the second half. But Miami was leading this game in halftime. I mean, they had a really solid first quarter and then followed it up with at least a better second quarter in comparison to what they were able to do against the Thunder. 34 points in the first quarter, 25 in the second versus OKC's 32 and 22. But again, when you're allowing a team to score 12 unanswered points in nearly a 40-point third quarter and then letting them score another 31 in the fourth, it's going to be kind of hard to play catch up in that regard. SGA putting up MVP numbers in this game, as was kind of expected. 29 points on 10 of 19 shooting to go along with 8 dimes in this game. But, I mean, kind of was able to do what he does best. Draw the foul. 7 of those 29 points coming from the free throw line. Again, I'm not saying this is all a surprise or a, oh my God, why didn't Miami do any better? But if you're letting the MVP do MVP things, it's obviously not going to be easy to crawl your way back into this game if you go on these spurts where you're allowing a plethora of double-digit scoring to happen. And, Tyler Hero, again, having a decent performance for Miami. 19 points on 8 of 15 shooting. Was -4 in the plus-minus column and compared to the, I believe, -14 from Saturday's contest. Or he had -5 Sunday and -14. He had -5 yesterday, -14 on Saturday against the Pacers. But, I mean, he wasn't even Miami's leading scorer in a game where Norman Powell was out of the mix due to lower back soreness, which, in my opinion, if Powell's going to be out, dog, you need the ball in your hands. Like, push the pace. Passing and playmaking, I would say, facilitating is not, I would say, the main core piece of Tyler Hero's game. But in a game where you can give Larson more minutes, and in this game he thrived because of that was the case, you can use that to your advantage to not only get your teammates involved, but play off the catch and shoot a little bit more. Mitchell, 13 and 10 in this game. It's not like we didn't have a facilitator in this game running the show, at least at the point guard position. Larson, as I'd mentioned, over that 26-minute threshold. And I'm going to keep beating that point up because Miami has definitely needed help in their backcourt this season, especially with Hero being out for the majority of, for the beginning of the season and the majority of the year so far. Having help like that in the backcourt has definitely helped Miami, at least in terms of what this offense and what the pace has looked like this year, leading the league in pace, being top 5 in scoring. So Jovic also looked pretty half decent tonight in comparison to what we've seen him do this season. 13 points. But Adebayo, again, continuing to struggle more so in this game in comparison to Saturday's game, which is, again, why I go back to the point, Hero is not the only one to blame. It's a team effort, and unfortunately, when your two best players are either the success of how they're playing is not contributing to Miami getting in the win column, or they're just consistently not playing well, and when Miami loses, it hurting them even more, it's definitely talking points to consider, look at, and use to reevaluate how the team can move going forward. Drop in the comments if you think if there is one sole player to blame on Miami right now, because, again, I think it's a team problem, and I think it starts with your two cornerstone players either not consistently being in the lineup or not playing consistently well, because I think the only player that's really shown consistent basketball that's translated to Miami winning, at least in the starting lineup, is Norman Powell so far this season. Hawkes Jr. has been an absolute threat off the bench, and I think for the most part, he's been pretty consistent. I mean, it was nice at least to see Wiggins step up in this game against the Thunder, 23 points, 8 of 16 from the field. But, I mean, I don't want to say it doesn't matter, but If he could consistently do that on nights where obviously Norman Powell's not in the mix or when Tyler Hero's not there, which has been the vast majority of the games this year, that'd be great, but it's not the case. So again, drop in the comments what you guys think. If there is any sole player or contributing factor to blame for this Miami team consistently not being successful, and if where the blame needs to be shifted, because I think it starts with a combination of Adebayo and Hero, but again, not placing the sole blame of what's going on their play entirely. I just think it's a big contributing factor into why we can't consistently see this Miami team be a scary, or at least be a dominant team, and we haven't over really since the beginning of December. Which is why I kind of want to talk about, especially with some of the reports that came out the end of last week surrounding Ja Morant, is now really the time to consider making that superstar acquisition for Ja, superstar point guard, to come to Miami. I'm going to talk about this a lot more and again, kind of re-harping some trade packages we could potentially see before the trade deadline on February 5th. But now Shams is reporting that for the first time, the Memphis Grizzlies are entering offers to potentially move the two-time All-Star ahead of the trade deadline. And Miami obviously voicing that they have interest in Morant earlier this season, excuse me. So I think now is definitely an interesting time to kind of consider potential packages. And as I had mentioned, I don't think Adebayo should be included in any trade, because I think if you take him off the roster defensively, this team suffers 10 times more than they are right now. Considering Hero and Powell have very similar games into what they can bring to the table and how that contributes to Miami being successful, I think if you get rid of one over the other, I mean, Hero and Morant in that backcourt versus Morant at the 1 and then maybe shifting Mitchell to the 2 and then having Powell at the 3. And then you have Wiggins coming off the bench, or even Powell at the 2 and Wiggins at the 3 if you want to play, a little bit bigger, have a bigger starting lineup. And then maybe having, Mitchell come off the bench, even though I do like Davion in the starting lineup. I think any kind of potential package needs to involve Hero or Powell. I don't really like Powell getting traded because I think consistently he's been playing a hell of a lot better. But I also think that there may be some sort of devil's advocate argument because Hero is younger and is coming off-season surgery, hasn't really had a lot of time to get his footing this season, that you could make the case for maybe shipping Powell because guy's 32 years old. Again, I would rather trade Hero in a deal for Morant. I'm going to get into that a little bit more in tomorrow's episode, but I think because of the consistency and how we've seen that consistency translate to the success of this Miami team this season, that's why you keep Powell right now. And if you're going to look at any type of trade for acquiring a superstar centerpiece type player, you maybe look at trading Hero. Drop in the comments what you guys think. That's going to do it for today's episode of Your Heat Latest on FanArc. Thanks again so much for joining us. Don't forget to drop a like and, of course, subscribe to our channel. We've got great daily content you don't want to miss right here, Monday through Friday. Thanks again for checking in this Monday. I'm Sam Shapiro. Have a great day.